Chapter 3. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces, to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Then the princes, the governors, the captains, and the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up, and they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then an herald cried aloud, To you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at what time you hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king hath set up. And whoso falleth not down and worship it, shall the same hour be cast in the midst of a burning fiery furnace. Therefore at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and all kinds of music, all the people, the nations, and the languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Wherefore at that time certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Jews. They spake and said to the king Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. Thou, O king, hast made a decree that every man that shall hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoso falleth not down in worshipping, that he should be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in his rage and fury, commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Do not ye serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Now if ye be ready, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made, well. But if ye worship not, ye shall be cast in the same hour into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hand? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. If it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thy hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spake and commanded that they should heat the furnace 7 times more than it was wont to be heated. And he commanded the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats, their hosen, and their hats, and their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent, and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flames of the fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound, into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonied, and rose up in haste, and spake and said unto his counselors, Did not we cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said unto him, King, true, O king. He answered and said, Lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fiery furnace, and spake and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, ye servants of the Most High God, come forth, and come hither. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came forth of the midst of the fire. And the princes, governors, and captains, and the king's counselors, being gathered together, saw these men, upon whose body the fire had no power, nor was an hair of their head singed, neither were their coats changed, nor the smell of fire had passed on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar spake and said, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants that trusted in him, and have changed the king's word and yielded their body, that they might not serve nor worship any god, except their own God. Therefore I make a decree, that every people, nation, and Shadrach, which speak anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, shall be cut to pieces, and their houses shall be made a dunghill, because there is no other God that can deliver after this sort. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. Chapters 1 through 18 tell us that Daniel was not alone in his righteousness in Babylon, that there were 3 fine, powerful, righteous young men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these men were so determined to do what was right no matter what. No matter what. I love that phrase. That they were willing to defy men and rulers to keep their faith. Now, Nebuchadnezzar raised up a statue 90 feet tall to his god, or in an image of his god, and he required that all of the rulers, the sheriffs, the magistrates, the judges, the people who were in charge of various functions in all of the provinces come to the dedication of this statue. Now, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego would have been required to show up because they were standing before the king. We learned that in previous chapter. That meant they were his counselors. They would have been expected to show up because they would have been expected to support him in all that he did. You couldn't defy the emperor king, because that would be showing great disrespect and would be worthy of death. I think the idea behind this whole statue was basically a plot to kill, to make it so that the people who knew that Daniel and Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego would not worship this idol was to set it up so that there would be cause for them to be killed. And they basically fell right into the trap. But because they were willing to be obedient, it didn't quite work out the way these fellows who wanted this to happen planned it. There was music, and when the music was played, everybody was supposed to fall down on their face and worship. And when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not, somebody showed up in front of the king. Okay, king, these guys are not doing what they're supposed to. King Nebuchadnezzar gets really mad. He calls them before him. He says, if you will do this when this happens, all is well. That's wonderful. He's not going to hold grudges because he didn't. But if you won't do it, if you refuse, and they say, King, thank you very much, but we aren't going to do this. You know, we have our God to worship. We are not going to worship your idol. He then is so furious, he orders the furnace to be made 7 times hotter. The way you made a furnace really, really, really hot in those days was to get wood that had a lot of pitch in it. So you would get some soft wood, you get a spruce, a pine, or something in that family with lots of pitch in it, and you would throw it into the fire, and it was like throwing gasoline into the fire. It made it tremendously hot. And there was a spot up at the top where they're obviously big enough to throw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in. And the fire was so hot that it killed, the heat going out the top, killed the men who actually threw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego into the fiery furnace. They were all tied up. They fell all the way through. Nebuchadnezzar is looking through a spot in the bottom that's obviously big enough for all the air to go in for this fire, and he can see that there's not just 3 of them, there's 4 of them in there. And according to Daniel's writing, it looks like the Son of God is in there. And Nebuchadnezzar realizes that fire is red hot, and it's killed all the guys who threw them in, but it hasn't harmed them, and he calls them forward out of it. I always cry at that part. I think I did while I was reading it too. And then he declares that nobody will say anything against Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, or their God. That has the desired effect of protecting the Jews in the Babylonian Empire. Their righteousness did. And he makes them servants and rulers in Babylon. So that is all the good that the Lord wanted. So Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are rulers under King Nebuchadnezzar for Babylonian.